Hey guys, welcome back for another video. We got a fun one prepared today. What we'll be doing is we'll be breaking down all four of our quarterfinal round two playoff games we have coming up for round two of the 2024 college football season. We're going to completely break these games down, try to predict the outcome. Who's going to win, who's going to lose, and what the final score will be. And we'll also mention the best bets, the money lines, the spreads, the over-unders. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments about these games or anything else, please drop them below and I will respond. This is it, guys. This is round two of the college football season. Our top 8 teams, they made it through round one. They're facing off now, trying to get to round 3, trying to decide who's going to potentially be playing in the national championship. The college football season is almost over, but every week we're going over every college game, the bowl games, and every single playoff round as they come up, breaking them down, predicting the outcomes, and we're also doing the same thing for every NFL game as well. 1 week left of the NFL regular season, week 18 coming up this weekend. A lot of news going on in the football world because both seasons are wrapping up. If you're a football fan, if you're a sports fan, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so that you can follow along with us. We're going to look at every quarterfinal game. The very first one we have coming up is actually going to be on Tuesday, tomorrow night, the very first game, New Year's Eve, 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. We have the Fiesta Bowl. We have number 6 Penn State, 12-2 coming off that loss in the Big Ten Championship, and they won the round 1 matchup. They're going to be facing off versus number 3 Boise State, who did have the bye week. They are 12-1. Their only loss was to number 1 Oregon. It was a 3-point loss. Boise, they won the Mountain West. They are steamrolling people, and they have who I believe is the best player in college football this season. They have the best running back in all of college football, but Penn State, we know what they do. They run the ball. They have an elite top 10 defense. They get after it. They shut down the run versus Boise State, who loves to run the ball, a top 10 rushing team. Right now, Penn State heavy favorite, 64.8% chance to win this game. 11.5-point favorites. The over-under's 53.5. You have James Franklin. He finally won the big game this past weekend. Can he get through round 2, make it to round 3? That would be a major accomplishment. They made the Big Ten Championship this year. Yes, they lost, but they made it there, and the Ohio State Buckeyes didn't. That's an accomplishment in itself. Right now, they're going to be led by the veteran Drew Aller. He's closing in on 3,100 yards. 21 touchdowns, 7 picks, but he's been doing a lot of work with his legs the last few weeks, scrambling, running for first downs. That has adapted this offense. Right now, if they continue to play the way they've been playing offensively, for I'd say the last 3 to 4 weeks, they have a real shot here to blow this game out and make the national championship. Overall, they're averaging 33.9 points a game, throwing for 246 running for 201.2, a top 15 rushing team in the nation, one of the best 1-2 running back punches in all of college football. But they're only giving up 15.9 points a game. This is an elite defense. Top 10 in sacks, top 10 in tackles for a loss, top 10 in quarterback pressures. They get after it. They shut down the run game. They're only giving up 100.3 rushing yards on the ground. That's one of the best run-stopping teams in the nation. That's their strength. The line shutting down the run. Boise State's strength is the running game. They have a top 10 rushing attack, the best running back in all of college football. It's going to be strength on strength. They're going to be led by the quarterback, Matson. He's closing in on 2,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, 3 picks. He's also been known to scramble for first downs. Very underappreciated football player. Right now, overall, their offense are averaging 39.1 points a game. That's a top 15 offense in college football. Throwing for 224.2, running for 250.5. Very balanced on the offensive side. Top 10 rushing team, 250 yards per game. That's 2.5 times more than Penn State gives up in their average game. That's why I've been saying it's going to be strength on strength. Rush defense versus rush offense, and they're giving up 21.9 points a game. They don't have a great defense, but they've been playing better for the last month. Looking at the playmakers for Penn State, one of the best 1-2 running back punches. They have Singleton. They have Allen. They're going to be cycling those guys through, keeping their legs fresh. You're going to have to compete with this attack from Penn State. Not for 1, not for 2, not 3, 4 quarters of physical running downhill. What's the depth of Boise State? We know Penn State has the depth to compete in the trenches. They've been built in the trenches. But does Boise State have it? Can they keep up with the physicality of Penn State for 4 quarters? And they're going to be led by, who might be the X factor, Tyler Warren. He might be the best tight end in all of college football. Nobody can cover this guy. If you saw what he single-handedly did versus the USC Trojans, 18 catches, led that team down the field every single possession. He is unstoppable. Boise State has nobody that can match him up position on position. He's the X factor. If you force Penn State into third and long situations, look out for Tyler Warren because he will be getting the ball. And on the other side, Madsen and, of course, Ashton Jeanty, 3 yards shy of 2,500, 30 total touchdowns at the running back position. I thought he should have won the Heisman. I personally think he got robbed of the Heisman. He had a crazy season, a Barry Sanders level season, and they have Camper at the wide receiver position. This game could potentially be close for, maybe the first half, maybe the first 3 quarters, but I think Penn State and their physicality is going to pull away early fourth quarter, and that's when they take control of this game. I have Penn State winning it, 33-24. And our next 3 games are all going to be on New Year's Day. The first one's going to be the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl on ESPN January 1st, 1 p.m. Number 5 Texas Longhorns, 12-2. They lost the SEC championship, but they won their round 1 matchup versus Clemson. They're going to be playing number 4 Arizona State, 11-2, winner of the Big 12, also coming off the bye week. Right now, Texas, 79.6% chance to win this game. 12.5-point favorite. The over-under is 51.5. They were 14.5-point favorites at one point. Nobody is giving the Sun Devils a chance to win this game. But let me make this very clear. Texas beat Clemson. Yes. Texas gave up points to Clemson. Clemson made it a game there at the very end. You can't tell me Clemson is worlds better than Arizona State. If Clemson could make that game close and compete with the Texas Longhorns, then you better believe Arizona State more than capable of doing the same thing. So don't overlook Arizona State. I'm not saying they're going to win, but what I'm saying is Arizona State would have beaten Clemson on a neutral field. Clemson made that game close, so you have to respect Arizona State. Don't disrespect them just because they're coming out of the Big 12. That's how people get surprised. Looking at Texas, this is not the Texas Longhorns team of last season. Last season, top 10 offense, top 10 defense. They were curb stomping people. If they have a decent offense this season, it is not top 10. They're not running the ball, and they're not throwing the ball like they were last season. They're still good enough to win the national championship. Number 4 overall roster, according to ESPN. Talented at every single position. NFL caliber players at every single position. They can win it. They just have to get hot. And with that talent, they can get hot at any point, and it's going to be very hard for anyone to be capable of beating them. But let's also make this clear. Coming into the playoffs, Texas had no top 25 wins. Their only top 25 win this season was in round 1 of the college football playoff versus Clemson. I'm not knocking them for that, but don't come in here saying they've been beating down everyone when they have no top 25 wins. We have to look at the stats. We have to look at the schedule. But regardless of that, I think Texas has a really good shot to win the national championship this year. They are so talented. They just have to get hot at the right moment. Whoever's hot in the playoffs at the right time, that's going to be the team that wins the national championship. Think of the Buckeyes this past week. They got hot versus Tennessee. This is the time you want to be hot right now, not during the regular season. Right now, Texas, obviously, Steve Sarkisian, one of the best coaching staffs in all of college football. Quinn Ewers, he's not having the year he had last season. You're going to see Arch Manning cycling in for some key plays, but overall, Quinn Ewers, he's the experienced veteran quarterback. He's closing in on 2,900 yards, 26 touchdowns, 10 picks. They're averaging 33.9 points a game. Throwing for 288.4, running for 173.5. They really got that run game going versus the Clemson Tigers, but it's that defense. They're only giving up 13.3 points a game. The number three defense in all of college football. That's how they're going to win their games. Not their offense, it's their defense completely shutting people down, only giving up 177.6 passing yards per game, 104.6 rushing yards per game. They are elite at both levels. They're going to make it very hard on Arizona State to run the ball. Arizona State, just like Boise State, they want to establish the run game at the line of scrimmage. Easier said than done versus these really physical Big Ten SEC football teams, especially Penn State and the Texas Longhorns. They live in the trenches. They have the big bodies. They have the depth to shut down the run for 4 quarters. And then looking at the other side, Arizona State, obviously props to Kenny Dillingham. This team came out of nowhere this season, won the Big 12, first season in the Big 12. You want to give them some respect for that. They're going to be led by Leavitt, a very underappreciated quarterback. He's closing in on 2,700 yards, 24 touchdowns, only 5 picks. he's going to have to play a clean game here. Texas is going to be in his face the whole game, hitting him, trying to tackle him, trying to sack him the whole game. He's going to have to roll that pocket. He's going to have a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He's going to have to step up the biggest game of his life right now. Right now, they're averaging 33.1 points a game, throwing for 234.8, running for 198.8, giving up 21.3 points a game. They don't have a bad defense. They just have an average defense. It's going to be that run game that's going to keep them in the pocket. Looking at the playmakers for Texas, Wisner, Blue, Golden, Bond. Bond's been banged up the whole season, but he's a round one NFL player. This team is loaded. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. They have playmakers up and down the field. They're the more balanced offense. And then for Arizona State, they obviously have Scadaboo, one of the best running backs in the nation, a top 3 running back. He missed one game, and still he's closing in on 1,600 yards. Tyson's out, but that wide receiver core as a whole stepped up this past game that they had to play for the Big 12 championship. So who's going to dominate this game? It's going to be decided in the trenches, just like the previous game. I have to go with the depth of the Texas Longhorns making the difference here, but I do think Arizona State will be able to keep it close, will be able to keep it respectable. But the Texas Longhorns pull away, and I have Arizona State getting a garbage fourth quarter touchdown. Texas wins this one 30-24. And our next matchup is going to be the Rose Bowl, also on January 1st on ESPN at 5 p.m. Number 8 Ohio State Buckeyes, 11-2, coming off of that beatdown of the Tennessee Volunteers. They'll be playing number 1, the Oregon Ducks, the only undefeated team in Division I college football, 13-0. It's a real shame for the Ducks. The number 1 team. They won the Big Ten, and they have the hardest road to the national championship. They really need to fix the seeding for college football going into next season. Right now, the Buckeyes, like I was saying, you want to be hot in the playoffs. Regular season doesn't matter. Once you make the playoffs, the whole season basically starts over. Ohio State showed you what they can do when they are focused, when they are on point, when they curb stomp the Tennessee Volunteers, a top 10 defense. They beat them down, scored over 40 points on them. They were dominating on both sides of the ball. The Buckeyes are hot right now, but can they keep that momentum going into this game? Don't forget, this is the second time these teams have played this season. Oregon beat them round 1 in Eugene. Playing at home, that's worth probably about 3 points. They beat them by 1 point. Now they're on a neutral site field. This game, to me, is a complete toss-up. Anyone can win this game. 50-50 matchup. 2 of the most talented teams in the nation. The Buckeyes, number 3 roster in the country. The Ducks, number 5 roster. These teams are talented at every single level. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Both of these teams can dominate at the line of scrimmage. The Buckeyes are pretty banged up on their offensive line. They don't have the run game maybe that they wanted to have. They got the run game going versus Tennessee, but they really need the passing game to help them out. Thankfully for them, they have probably the most talented wide receiver core in the nation. But the Oregon Ducks are right there with them talent-wise in the wide receiver room. Right now, the Buckeyes, 53.6% chance to win this game. 2.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 55.5. That round 1 matchup was probably the best game of the regular season. This has the potential to be the game of the college football playoff season. Some people are saying that this is the de facto national championship. Ohio State, Ryan Day, a lot of pressure on him. Yes, he got round 1 playoff, but they put $20 million NIL into this season. He needs to get to the national championship. He needs to beat the Oregon Ducks. He can't lose to another Big Ten team twice in one season. He has Knowles. He has Chip Kelly. Very talented coaching staff, extremely talented roster. And on the other side, props to Dan Lanning. What this guy has done for Oregon, taking them to the next level, bringing them back to prominence. A really good team. Looking at the playmakers, obviously the Buckeyes are going to be led by Will Howard. He's the mobile quarterback that can throw it. He's closing in on 3,200 yards, 29 passing touchdowns, 9 picks. He also has 7 rushing touchdowns to add to that. He can extend plays with his legs. That is the X factor here, is him running. He could have a big day on the ground, 60 to 70 rushing yards from the quarterback position, but the Buckeyes know that. They have a very talented defensive line, very fast linebacker core. They're going to try to bottle him up, keep him in the pocket, force him into 3rd and long situations. Right now, the Buckeyes are averaging 36 points a game, throwing for 264.9, running for 168.2. A lot better running the ball first half. The offensive line has 2 to 3 starters out. They're going to be able to run the ball enough, but they're going to have to beat Oregon through the air. You have the wide receiver cores. That's where you want to test the Ducks. Egbuka, Smith, try to find 2 quarterbacks that can match up with those guys. Good luck. And they're only giving up 11.4 points a game. When I say 11.4, that is number 1 in the country by 2 points. It's not even close. The Ohio State Buckeyes have the best defense in the nation right now, only giving up 161.6 passing yards, only 101.1 on the ground, only giving up 262 overall yards every single game coming out of the Big Ten. And on the other side, we have 15-year senior Dylan Gabriel. This guy's been playing quarterback forever. He's closing in on 3,600 yards, 28 passing touchdowns, only 6 picks. One of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football this season, and he also has 7 rushing touchdowns. Him just like Will Howard. They have a very similar skill set. He's more accurate, but he is also a mobile quarterback. If you flush him out, he can take off. He's not a run-first quarterback in any way whatsoever, but he's a mobile quarterback. He can use his athleticism to extend plays and run for that first down. They're averaging 35.9, throwing for 286.2, running for 171.8. These teams are very even, very level on the offensive side, and they're only giving up 17.8 points a game, which is a top 15 defense. It's not top 1, but it's still 15. Both of these teams talented on both sides of the ball. Looking at the playmakers here for the Buckeyes. One of the better 1-2 running back punches in the nation. Junkins, Henderson. They're going to be keeping those guys fresh, cycling them in, but they're going to have the offensive line have a big day because Oregon does have a top 10 defensive line, but they have Jeremiah Smith. They have Egbuka. They have the playmakers to take pressure off of the offensive line by extending plays, keeping it vertical. What cost them the Michigan game was they were too run-heavy reliant when they have such a great wide receiver core. Throw the ball up to the playmakers. They did that the Tennessee game, and they completely dominated it. And on the other side for Oregon, they have Jordan James closing in on 1,300 yards. They have Johnson. They have Stewart. They have a wide receiver core that's almost as good as the Buckeyes. It's not as good, but it's just slightly behind them. Probably number 2 or 3 in the country. So what do we have as the outcome here? I said this game could go either way. If the Buckeyes win this game, I would not be surprised at all, especially after the performance of the Tennessee game. But I'm going to go with Oregon winning it. 33-31. Very, very close game. Going with the plus 2.5, going with the over. I think there's going to be some points scored. This is going to be a fun game. No matter what the outcome is, this is going to be college playoff football at its finest here. And our final game, we have the final round 2 matchup of the 2024 college football season, the All-State Sugar Bowl. This game is going to also be on New Year's Day, 8:45 p.m. on ESPN. Number 7 Notre Dame, 12-1. They're coming off of that round 1 victory. They are an independent, so they didn't win a conference. They'll be playing number 2 Georgia Bulldogs, 11-2, coming off the bye. They had a lot of time to rest here. That could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. They might be rusty, or they could have a really good game plan for Gunnar Stockton. Right now, Notre Dame comes in 53.8% chance to win this game, but it's the Georgia Bulldogs who are the Vegas favorites. 1.5 point favorites. The over in here is 45.5. This game is practically a 50-50 pick'em. This is one of those ones that I'm the most uncertain about. This could go either way because it's going to come down to defenses, a line of scrimmage, trench warfare. Who's going to dominate at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball? Who's going to be able to run the ball more successfully? That's going to dominate the time of possession. That's going to dominate the line of scrimmage. This is Freeman versus Kirby Smart. We know Kirby Smart. He knows how to get the most out of his teams in the biggest moments. In the playoffs, he knows how to win the big game. That's one thing they're capable of. The number 2 overall roster. And for Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, he got this Notre Dame team to this point. Don't forget that loss to NIU. Worst loss for any college football team of the 2024 season. But he was able to get this team back on track, get them refocused, get them to the playoffs, win round 1 with the potential to win round 2 and make it further. He has Denbrock. He has Golden, very talented coaching staff. Notre Dame, they're going to be led by Riley Leonard, closing in on 2,300 yards, 17 passing touchdowns, 6 picks. He also has 15 rushing touchdowns to add to that. That's the Notre Dame record he set in round 1 of the playoffs. I've been very critical of Leonard. Not an accurate passer by any means. I've been knocking him since he was at Duke. He doesn't know how to complete a pass, but one thing he can do, he can run, he's mobile. If Notre Dame gets that run game going, it's going to help him throwing the ball because it's going to open up the play action. He has to make just enough plays. Georgia wants to force Notre Dame into being in third and long situations. They know Notre Dame is a run-heavy team. If they stack that line, take the run game away from them, they want to dictate the pace of the way Notre Dame plays the game. They want to force them to throw the ball. He's going to have to make throws in key situations. He has the experience to do that, but we're going to have to see it on the field. Overall, right now they're averaging 38.8 points a game. Throwing for 203.5, running for 222.4, a top 15 rushing team in the nation. That is their strength. Strength on strength. But it's that defense, only giving up 13.8 points a game, just behind the Texas Longhorns, the number 4 overall defense in all of college football. That's why this game is going to potentially be so close. Notre Dame is bringing that defense. Defense travels no matter where you go. They're going to want to beat you at the line of scrimmage, at the point of attack. Georgia's been struggling to run the ball throughout the season. Notre Dame wants to make it even more difficult. They want to put the game into Gunnar Stockton's hands. They want Gunnar Stockton to beat them. He's not Carson Beck. He's not the experienced starter. They want the game on his shoulders. They have the defense to accomplish that. Right now, looking at Georgia, obviously Carson Beck, he got hurt the last game. He's out for the season. He's already declared for the NFL draft. He's probably going to be there in street clothes on the sidelines, though. The game is going to be on Gunnar Stockton. He's been on this roster a few seasons, so he's inexperienced gameplay-wise, but he's experienced with the playbook. He knows how to work with these playmakers. He's not a better passer than Carson Beck, but he is a better runner. Not a bad passer, though. He can throw it, but he can run. That might be the X factor here for the Georgia Bulldogs. They've been struggling to run the ball throughout the season. Maybe what's going to help them is rushing the ball from the quarterback position, being able to scramble, being able to extend plays with your legs. Notre Dame's defense, they're going to try to bottle you up, keep you in that pocket. If he can break out, potentially he could scramble, get some first downs on those third and long situations. Overall, Georgia, they're averaging 33.2, throwing for 297.3. Very pass heavy this season. That's what's hurt them on the offensive side. There's nothing wrong with throwing the ball, but we know Georgia's strength the last few seasons has been offensive line, running the ball, and their defense. The offensive line's had some questions this season. They have not been able to establish a rushing attack, and their defense is just above average this season. It's not great like it usually is. They're only running for 129.1. That's really bad for Georgia standards when they're usually over 180 rushing yards per game in their typical season, and they're giving up 20.4 points a game. That's not bad. That's just average. That's top 30, top 40 right now. Georgia is always sub 15 points a game. But don't let that interfere with the talent level of Georgia. We haven't seen them play up to par this season, but we know they have the coaching staff to. We know they have the talent to. Like I've been saying the whole video, you only need to be hot in the playoffs. They can get that Georgia defense on track here in the playoffs and just steamroll their way through the playoffs, led by their defensive talent. Looking at the playmakers for Notre Dame, obviously Leonard, they have Love at the running back position closing in on 1,100 yards. He's going to have the game of his life. He's going to need over 100 rushing yards this game in order for Notre Dame to dominate on the ground and win the time of possession, win the game. Their wide receiver court's one of their better ones of recent seasons, but they are lacking here. That's why they're so one-dimensional, a very run-heavy team. And looking at Georgia, they are also one-dimensional, but now they have a new quarterback, so that completely throws a wrench in there. We don't have much film on Gunnar Stockton. We only have the half of the SEC championship game and his high school team. That's it. Outside of that, he's an X factor here. Notre Dame doesn't fully know how Georgia prepares to use him after these weeks of rest and weeks of game planning. They have Frazier, they have Etienne, they have Smith. Not the best running back room, not the best wide receiver core this room, but don't let that interfere with the level of talent they have. They can show up for these last few games and the season. So what's the outcome we have? This game's going to be close. It's going to be a slugfest. I see it going back and forth. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, though. I think it's going to be a lower-scoring game. It's going to be a mudding, grinding it out game, running over and over and over. Physical matchup. Guys are going to be beat up. They're going to be tired by the end. But I have Notre Dame pulling it off, winning this one 23-20. I'm going with the plus 1.5, just slightly going with the under. I have Notre Dame moving on to round 3. I think their defensive depth is what makes the difference. They might be able to generate a turnover second half. That's what seals the game. So that's our breakdown. That's our predictions for all of our round 2 college football playoff games. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments, please drop them below, and I will respond. Thank you.